Good morning, YouTube. So I'm doing this as a live stream today. This is part 5 of our SHSAT review from cover to cover. I'm using the 2017-2018 SHSAT handbook. You can email me at GregsTutoringNYC@gmail.com. I have it written below for anybody who needs a copy because it's not available online anymore. We cover the revising and editing section, which has been in existence, I think, since 2017 onward in the SHSAT. And we're going to head off now into the reading comprehension part. Okay? I'm doing this as a live stream, but I know everybody's back in school today. So I'm more or less talking to myself. And hopefully you guys can catch us later. I have a bunch of kids to tutor from 4 o'clock onward or whatever, and don't know if I'm going to be able to get back in time because one's in Manhattan. So I might be able to. Let's see what I can squish in or not. In any event, I'm just going to keep plowing ahead on this cover-to-cover kind of thing. And so let's just jump into this. Let me make sure we're live. So reading comprehension is directions. Read the passage below and answer the questions following it. Base your answers on info contained in the passage only. If you notice, that's bold-faced. Don't do it on anything that you know about. And when you do the inference, still do your inferencing based on stuff in the passage. Don't just use world knowledge. Of course you need world knowledge. If talking about a baseball game, you have to know what baseball is about. If it's talking about building a house, you have to know what a house is. So when I say that, it's contextual. But and then, of course, mark the best answer, which is the last sentence over here. All right, so I don't think this is going to fit on you guys' screens. So I'm going to do is shrink this down at least once. Yeah, let me see here. So here's what I think we're going to do. First of all, I'm going to make sure we're live. Okay, let me move me out of the way for starters. Okay, and don't think the passage is going to fit on the screen. So I'm going to do 2 levels of screen captures because it might be too tiny for some people. Because I'm going to do with this thing and I'll make it even smaller. And then when we come back to the questions, I'm going to bring it back to one bigger than it is now. So try to get the first 2 paragraphs on each side, do a screen capture there, and then we'll get the bottom kind of paragraphs. So you're going to have to kind of read this in 2 pieces, all right? And let me shrink it down, and I think now the whole thing will fit, although it might be too small for some of your screens. So again, if you have duplicate monitors, just put this on the second monitor, and you're good to go. If you have a screen capture app, run that and click the thing so you can read it on the side. You can also open this up in 2 tabs. One tab you just freeze frame here, and the other tab you keep going, because everybody's definitely going to be on the replay of this unless you're home sick today. All right, so I'm going to bring this back up. And I just read it a second ago, so hopefully it's still fresh in my mind what's being asked here. So with that in mind, let's just go straight to the questions. I can't really copy and paste like I did the other sections, so we're going to have to kind of hunt and peck back and forth on this kind of thing. So just a couple of ground rules, so to speak. I like to tell my students, especially on the reading comprehension part, I kind of said not to do it on the other section, but sometimes this works for some kids and sometimes it doesn't, which is to just go and look at the questions. Before you read the passage, go and look at the questions. What does the following best tell us about the passage? What is the following applied by the phrase whatever? Okay? What is most likely the reason the farmers persisted? The author included the details, whatever, okay? In the winter, whatever, okay? So all you're doing is not looking at the answers. You just kind of get a general idea of when you're reading, what they're even asking you. So question 21 is always going to come up. It's what's the passage about? What's the main idea? So what you should be doing is once you finish reading a passage, this little space at the bottom where it has like page number 48 there, you want to scribble the main idea. And you don't want to write a paragraph. And you don't want to write a sentence. You just want to write a phrase. You just want to capture what's going on here. Okay? Right? So, and what normally can happen is once you write that phrase, and it doesn't have to be specific, it can be vague and generic. You're just trying to capture the essence of the main idea even. So that when you get to a question like this, you're not going to let the ABC start distracting you. You need to get a thing on it, because once you start seeing those answers, you start kind of getting self-doubt, and they can kind of tug you one way or the other. All right? So get to a passage, read the questions, and it's normally going to be 5 or 6 or 7 questions, or 8 in some cases now. If you can only remember 5 of them, you're still a head up. You're still a head up. Okay? And you're going to read the passage good. You're going to read the passage well, I should say, right? And remember that you have a clock going against you. So if you need to read the passage 3 times, you have probably just screwed up the whole test. Because on average, there's 114 questions. You have 3 hours. You have about 1.5 minutes per question. And on the ELA questions, you have to read passages. And you have to read all these answers as well. So there's a lot going on. In a lot of cases, you need to be prepared enough to be making snap decisions. Bing, bang, boom. I read the passage. I understood it. I zeroed in and stuff, which is one reason why you want to look at the questions. So try that way. Enough kids don't try that way enough, where they read the questions first. That said, that technique does not work for everybody, because some kids, it overloads their short-term memory on top of the test taking skills, on top of reading the passages, on top of their anxiety. The point is not to overload you guys, it's to underload you guys. And that said, again, this is something you can practice and find out whether it works for you or not. If it doesn't work for you, that's cool, but enough kids I find that it does work for. And they'll come back and tell me, yeah, that's it. Especially when I work one-on-one with kids. So again, take it for what it is. Okay, so 21 says, which of the following best tells what this passage is about? A, the belief of some religious leaders that the end of the world was coming in 1816. Now, although it says that over here on the right-hand side, that is not what the passage is about. Okay? So that's a detail. That supports something in the passage, and it doesn't even quite support the main idea. Okay, B, a summer of strange weather and its probable cause. Yeah, something weird happened that summer. It was almost winter. In fact, it was winter, and they were coming up with various reasons. So 21B seems to fit. C, the importance of summer weather to agriculture in New England. Yes, it touched on that because the crops couldn't grow that summer or grow properly, and they had to keep replanting them and all this stuff. They probably had a screwed up harvest. In fact, they may have had no harvest. All right. In some of that New England crop, it mentions stuff like July 4th was cold down south. Some of those crops may have ended up down south. I don't really remember how trade worked back then, but that's part of the deal here. So which of the following tells what this passage is about? It's not C. There's a cause and effect relationship that happens that was occurring and going on, but C is not the main idea. The main idea. This was not about weather. It was about a cold winter. So it was indirectly about weather, but it's not about summer weather in New England. Okay, it wasn't giving a history of summer weather over the time since the Pilgrims came. It wasn't doing anything like that. And then D, a comparison of weather in 1816 and 1991. Okay, there was a comparison made during the passage about that, but that's not the main idea of the passage. The main idea of the passage was that cold winter happening that time. So 21 would be B. Okay, so 21 wasn't too bad. 23. What is the most likely reason farmers persisted in replanting their crops? So when a question like this, if you read the passage, you should know the answer already. So you're going to try to do is match which one matches best. Now, sometimes 2 might be really close and are really both exact answers to the question. So let's just analyze each one at a time. They believed that they believed the cold weather could not continue all winter long. I think that's true. I think they believe that. They probably never experienced anything like this before, and we know it was probably from the volcano, as the passage said. So they just assumed, as we do, um, you know, we're heading into September. Technically, we're still in summer. Will it stay warm through all of September? Could it snow even? Yes, it could snow. Same when we go through all of October. October ends in Halloween. There's some Halloweens where it snowed already, and there's some Halloweens where you're walking around in a costume or whatever, still in your shorts. So we can have flip-flopping stuff going on back and forth. So the normal pattern stays the average. So they were probably thinking that the cold weather just wouldn't continue. I mean, who would think it would be snowing in August or something like that, right? So, and the average person today wouldn't even think it would be snowing in April, okay? No less May, June, July, stuff like that, okay? So E is a perfectly viable answer. F, they thought the crops would be able to survive even through the weather. No, they didn't think that. If they thought that, they wouldn't keep replanting them. They were dying. So F is kind of just the silliest answer. G, the weather had warmed up by July. No, it hadn't, but they kept thinking it probably would have. Okay? So that's the passage. Go back to the passage. It keeps saying that they kept replanting and they weren't sure what was going to happen or not. They thought, H, they thought the June snowfalls would provide needed moisture. Yeah, of course, plants need sunlight and the correct nutritious soil, and obviously rainfall and stuff. And rainfall is a lot of all the precipitations, including snow. But it tells us that we know that snow is going to kill the crop. So, and it even says that. So it's not H. So 22 would be E. So 22 wasn't really a doozy of one either. 23. In the winter that followed the summer of 1816, New Englanders most likely experienced. So, if you think through what happened and why, right, then you're gonna kind of see what's going on about some of it. So, all right. So let me see what we have here. A, new weather events that they had not encountered before. That's probably true because the ramifications from the volcano was still going on. There's a slight inference here because it doesn't quite tell us that, but it does say most likely, so it's asking us to make that leap here. B, temperatures that were warmer than usual for that time of year. No, everything seemed to indicate that it would be at least what normally was or colder. If the summer was colder, probably the winter was colder too. All right? C, a shortage of fruits, vegetables, and other essential crops. It mentions at least once, which is what the previous question was about the crops being screwed up. So if the crops are screwed up and they kept freezing and having to replant, that means the fruits, vegetables, and other essential crops never grew. So they had a shortage of them. So C is definitely true. C is better than B because B was not necessarily true. And A was true, but if you go back to what the passage is talking about, some of the main ideas and the supporting details, it's hitting on C stronger than it is on A. Okay? And D, difficulty adjusting to a different timeline for planting crops. That's probably kind of at the level of like a double inference. It's probably true, and it's probably what happened, that as this winter kept elongating and the summer kind of kept shortening and kind of never happened, that they did have difficulty trying to figure that out. But at the end of the day, it doesn't sound like there was a timeline at all. So D is kind of in there and not in there at the same time. I like to say something's in left field. It's kind of not even in the playing game. It's kind of a weirdest statement. So in the winter that followed the summer of 1860, New Englanders most likely experienced Difficulty adjusting to a different timeline. And by the way, given a cause and effect of things, because there was a difficulty in the timeline for planting the crops, there was C, a shortage of fruit, vegetables, and essential crops. So C rules for a couple of reasons here. Okay, 23. Okay, 24. Which of the following is applied? And by the way, we haven't really had to refer back to the passage yet. On this one, it's referring us back to line 70, which is at the end. The little numbers along the sides of the lines we're supposed to be using. I think everybody knows that. So skeptics in 1816 doubted that a faraway volcano could steal their summer. However, most present-day researchers believe Bessel's explanation to be generally correct, demonstrating the global nature of weather, the dust in the stratosphere, blah, 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 blah. So if we come back to that, which of the following is implied by the phrase global nature of weather? So, and we live in a global world now. Back then it was less true, even though it was true. I mean, they got from England and so on to here and other countries and yada yada. So, okay, let's just go through the choices. So 24, E, understanding the weather events around the world is important for making weather predictions. Yes, that's true, but if you go back to what's being said there, it's basically one thing causing another thing. So although it's true about predicting the weather, this was not about a weather prediction per se. Okay, F. Extreme weather conditions in some parts of the world can have a lasting impact on geographical areas. That's true. That's what happened here. So that's a better answer than E so far. And by the way, F has an issue because it mentions extreme. And the truth of the matter is, this was not about a global weather problem. Wait 1 second, I got my phone ringing. This is not about weather conditions affecting another part. This is a volcano affecting something. So F doesn't apply kind of there either. So that kind of weakens the essence of what F was about. Okay? So 24, G, natural disasters tend to occur in different parts of the world at the same time. No, that's silly. The volcano did affect that winter, so you can call them both maybe natural disasters, but that's just kind of a silly truism. And they're going to throw these things in there to kind of throw you off. So far, F is the better answer, even though I shot a hole in it. So we have H, 24H. Which of the following is implied by the global nature of weather? That conditions in one part of the world can affect another part of the world. Easy peasy, right? So 24 should be H. All right? And that makes sense. If you go back to the passage, weather in one part of the world should affect another part of the world. Conditions in one part of the world affects the weather in another part of the world, right? That's a different than F. H is talking about something affecting the weather. All right? And F is actually a table flip where it says weather is affecting geographic things. In this case, it was a geographic thing affecting the weather. So I didn't even catch that the first go through. So if we go back to this, where's 70? Explanation demonstrating that one part of the world's activities in part of the world can affect the weather in another part of the world. And that's what happened with the dust, exactly what happened with the dust. Okay, 25. The author included details about the eruption of the other volcano in 57 to 65. So that's kind of the middle of this over here. That's 55. Wait, what was the line? Let me bring that up. 55, 57 to 65. Which is this section here. Okay, so why did the author include that discussion? Okay, and when you read the passage, so the author's giving supporting evidence for whatever the author's claiming. Okay, so 25A, emphasis that the aftermath of the eruption still affects the environment today. I bet there's still some of that volcanic ash in the atmosphere, the stratosphere or whatever, but the author, I don't believe, ever mentioned that, and I don't think that was the author's purpose of mentioning that. Okay, I think the author's purpose of mentioning that was to show that it happened in another volcano before, and to give a good scientific example of something similar happening. B, highlight the severe impact that the eruption had on the atmosphere. Yeah, that seems to work. In both cases, that's what happened. So B is better than A so far. 25C. Provide details about what happens during a volcanic eruption. Although the dust flying in the atmosphere and maybe causing weather climatic changes is something that happens during a volcanic eruption, this passage was not about a volcanic eruption. It was really about that cold winter. So this is an indirect truism. So C is not really it, and B rules so far. And the author included details about the eruption. D suggests that the weather events around the world caused the eruption. No, it was the other way around. So they did that same table flip they did with F up here with D's. This is in a backwards thing. And by the way, if a kid didn't read the passage, some kids just like to look at the questions, try to hunt the answers. You can't do that. You can't even do that on the state test. You can't do it on the SHSAT either. You're just going to get too many wrong. And what often happens is it may have talked about one thing happening on the one mountain, and it actually conflicts itself later on another mountain. So if you only look up the one thing, often you're getting the wrong information. So you must read the passage, and obviously you must understand the passage. So 25 is B. Okay, 26 should be a no-brainer if you read the passage and understood it. You can even answer it without looking at the answers. The cold weather was most likely caused by the eruption of the volcano, throwing all the ash into the air. Okay? Unusual sunspot activity, E, no. The excessive use of lightning rods, no. Right, and these, by the way, these things in the passage mentions that people thought may have caused it, but they kind of shot that down. Damage to the ozone layer, no. An increase in dust in the atmosphere, yes. So 26 was one that you just can't get wrong. You just can't get wrong. And again, if a kid comes up to this paragraph over here, and looks for the reasons, whoops, they might just be thinking that's what happened and that's the case. All right, let me make sure we're still live. Yeah, we seem to be. All right, so let me bring that back. And 27 is how does the third paragraph contribute to the passage? Let's try to find the third paragraph starters. So 1, 2, 3 is actually the one I just highlighted about the various reasons people came up with for the unusual winter happening. So how does the third paragraph contribute to the passage? It presents the most probable cause of the 1816 weather. It doesn't present the most probable cause. It presents what people thought were the most probable causes, right? Multiple. It's giving multiple things there. So A kind of works, but it doesn't really capture it. So we're assuming there's going to be a better answer here. 27B. It shows how 19th century people explained the weather. Yes, that's all the explanations at the time. There was probably more, and it was probably people who even shot down the ones that said. But again, we're only supposed to go by what the author's stating and claiming and expressing. So B is better than A for sure, because giving how they thought about what's going on. C, it presents a theory about the 1816 weather that some skeptics doubted. I think it mentioned some doubt, but some of it doesn't mention their doubtness. So it just mentioned their beliefs. One of them, I think it said people were not sure of, and I might even just be randomly guess. I'd have to read the passage again. So where is that again? So perhaps because it's giving various explanations, so maybe more than one is true, or maybe none of them are true. So it can be kind of a skeptic thing as well. But C is weaker, and B rules. D, it includes eyewitness reports to describe the source of the 1816 weather. No, that's if I'm not sure that was done at all in the passage, and if it was, it's certainly not in the third paragraph. And the third paragraph is just expressing different ideas for why the thing may have happened. It's not people reporting like how can you explain by a lightning rod, which is the things they put on the top of a hat, the homes that Benjamin Franklin invented to stop houses from getting hit by lightning and burnt down. You know, how does that how is that an eyewitness report to the effect of that winter? I mean, that's really a jump there. So the answer here would be B. All right, and what I'm going to do is going to stop after this one. I'm just going to put the bite-sized piece. Like I said, I'm not sure I'm going to be available later. We'll have to see. Most likely not. So hopefully everybody enjoyed their first day of school, and peace out.